Welcome to another episode of the Power Football Podcast. I'm here with former NFL tight end and Washington Commanders media member Logan Paulsen. Hi, Logan, and thanks for being here.
Oh no, thanks for having me, man. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
So let's start with your career. Can you introduce yourself and talk about your career?
Yeah, my name is Logan Paulsen. I'm a 10-year former NFL football player. I played 10 years in the NFL, played 6 years for the Washington Redskins at the time, now the Commanders. Played a year for Chicago, a year for San Francisco, a year for Atlanta, and a little over half a year for Houston. So that was kind of my career. I played college football at UCLA when it was still the Pac-10. And obviously that's changed quite a bit since I was in school, but that's kind of my sports background. And then I retired and got into kind of doing some XFL stuff, some radio stuff locally in here in DC, Washington DC, and have slowly kind of built that up and got more experience and have a great opportunity now with the team. I do all of their kind of local in-house broadcasts, like with podcasts and stuff. For the main show is Command Center. You can check it out on the Commanders YouTube page. So that's kind of what I do now. I do some stuff for local radio as well. So then I also do the in-game broadcast for the team. So it's been kind of a crazy turn of events, getting from being a player to now covering the team and talking about football as much as I do.
Yeah, for sure. And this year Washington has had a great season, so I think it's been great for you being in the radio and the media.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, obviously, it's fun talking about football. It was fun talking about the team under the Ron Rivera era. But now I think it's turning into something special, and the team's getting more kind of national recognition. And because of Jayden Daniels, because of Dan Quinn, because of Adam Peters, Josh Harris's new ownership has been outstanding. And all that stuff has just led to more positivity around the organization, and it's really helped our product out in terms of our team coverage, which is great. So, and in addition to that, we've got a very talented team of producers and directors and writers that work behind the scenes that make our product really outstanding. So, yeah, the team doing well is really good for us on the media side for sure, and something that as a fan of the team, I'm very excited about.
Yeah, for sure. I imagine that. So now let's talk about your football career. What went through your mind when the Washington Commanders signed you as an undrafted free agent? And how was your first training camp and mini camp and rookie camp and ODA experiences?
Yeah, I mean it was quite the experience. I was at UCLA. I was a starter for I think 3 years, 4 years. So I played a lot of football. I broke my foot my true senior year. I had a medical redshirt year and came back for my fifth year of college football. And it was a little bit like, when I had that injury, like all the kind of awareness of my career and my effectiveness at UCLA kind of disappeared a little bit. And so, I went through my senior season and it was okay. And then, draft day comes around and I didn't really expect to be drafted and just kind of waiting and kind of going through the thing. And Dallas called and said, "Oh, we're going to draft you." And San Diego at the time, the Chargers said, "Oh, we're going to draft you." And then obviously no one did. And I got to, the UDFA range, that undrafted free agent range. And Washington called, and I had a very good relationship with the tight end coach there at the time, a guy named John Embry. He coached me in college. I played with his son at UCLA, and he basically kind of was on the phone, was like, "Hey, man, like I think there's going to be a really good opportunity for you." And he, in addition to coaching me at UCLA, he also recruited me to UCLA. So I had a really good relationship with him, and so basically, I was talking to my dad, my agent, my mom, my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And one of the things that came out is like he's going to be a person that's going to advocate and fight for you inside the building. And so I thought, it's as good an opportunity as any to get out there to Washington and play with someone that you know really well, and John. And the number situation at the time was really good. There was Fred Davis and Chris Cooley, and they had signed Sean Ryan and Lee Vickers, a couple guys, but they were all kind of journeymen and they hadn't had any kind of long-term commitment to them. So I felt like there was a good opportunity for me to at least make the practice squad. And then I got out here and I lived in a hotel for a long time. And Kind of did that whole thing and went to practice and tried to get a little bit better every day. And slowly but surely that process happened. And then I got a call into, like Mike Shanahan's office when training camp was over. He's like, "Hey, we're going to let you go, but we're going to sign you back to practice squad." And I was like, "Great. That's more than I could ever have hoped for." And I went out to get lunch with one of my buddies. And then during that lunch, I got a call from uh, Mr. Allen, who was the GM at the time, and he said, "We're going to sign into the 53-man roster." And so I was kind of in a total dream. Undrafted free agents don't really have that opportunity. So it was kind of a little bit of a whirlwind, but, really cool opportunity. And I'm just very grateful that, Mike and Mr. Allen and John Embry all kind of stood up for me and made that happen.
And did you make the 53-man roster after the roster cuts, or they signed you after the season started?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was talking about there. On cut day, they were like, "Hey, we're going to sign you 53." But in that same day, before the cut was finalized, um, Mr. Allen called me and was like, "Hey, we're gonna bring you to 53." So actually, like, I didn't really spend any time on waivers, which was pretty cool. So yeah, I made the 53 the first day, which was pretty special, obviously.
Yeah, not everyone has the opportunity to make the roster as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool, and again, like, kind of a totally unexpected. I thought maybe I'd make the practice squad, maybe I'd have an opportunity, and to just have that opportunity. I still remember the feeling of kind of like making it and just kind of being in disbelief, and but also kind of having the feeling that, like, it was just the first step. Like, there was so much more work that I needed to do to make sure that I stuck around and was a contributing member of the team.
Yeah, I feel that. And now, speaking of your time in Washington, you played with multiple big name quarterbacks like Donovan McNabb, Robert Griffin, and I think you played with Kirk Cousins too, right?
Yes.
So, what was it like playing with them, and how did they help you to develop as a player and as a person?
Yeah, no, it was obviously Donovan McNabb was there my rookie season. So Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan's first year in Washington was also my first year. And that was really cool because I'd always been a fan of Donovan McNabb. My mom, funny enough, was a Syracuse grad, so was a big fan of Donovan McNabb. So being in the locker room with him was kind of one of those, like, surreal, excuse me, moments where I kind of couldn't believe it. Like, you're here with someone that you watched, throughout your childhood play, win a lot of football games at the highest level, and he's here just in the locker room talking to you or talking to you in the huddle and kind of saying what's going on. And that was obviously a very cool experience. And then obviously Robert gets drafted in 2012 with Kirk, and that was really special because it led to one of my most successful personal and team successes during my time in the NFL with that 2012 season where the team made the playoffs. And that was really, again, very special, very cool to kind of see, what the second overall pick could do for a franchise, what his charisma and his athleticism and his talent did for the offense, and how Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur, all these guys that were on the staff that then became head coaches down the road were able to innovate and develop that offense to support Robert was also very, very cool. And then to see Kirk too. Kirk, again, I probably spent the most one-on-one time with Kirk because, he was a fourth round pick, I think at the time, third or fourth round pick. And I was kind of a middle to bottom half of the roster guy. So I hung out with him a little bit more. Like, we practiced a little bit more together, things like that. And to see him kind of mature from 2012 to 2015 and then now see his career where it's at, is very special. And I think it's just a testament to his hard work and dedication to improving himself.
Yeah, because it's weird for teams to draft two quarterbacks in the same year, right?
It is a little bit unusual, but I do think, now, like, with how valuable quarterbacks are, just as a resource in the NFL, it's starting to make a little bit more sense. You're kind of hedging your bets, saying, like, if this one doesn't work out, or we see traits in this other player, like, it's something we want to pursue. And I think it was kind of innovative, honestly, at the time to kind of be that forward thinking with regards to the value, positional value, and asset evaluation by Mike and the rest of that staff there.
Yeah, exactly. And now those guys that were in Washington as the coaches are now head coaches throughout in multiple teams like LaFleur is in Green Bay, McDaniel in Miami, Shanahan in San Francisco, and McVay in Los Angeles, and their offenses are really innovative and explosive, and it's
Yeah.
really fun to watch them.
Yeah, it's I mean it's looking back on it, it was like kind of an embarrassment of riches just in terms of like coaching talent when I was here in Washington. Those guys are all very special, very innovative kind of savants when it comes to football. So to just have been around them and see their process, even for a brief period of time, was very, very cool. And now obviously all the successes that they're having are well earned and well deserved.
Yeah. I was going through your career and I noticed that Washington signed you after a few years in during your first free agency. How was that? And and what was it like for you to come back to the team that where you started your career?
Yeah, so basically I was I didn't leave. I played my first 3 years in Washington and then they re-signed me kind of in that fourth year because because I was an undrafted free agent and I was the deal length at the time was only 3 years. They had to re-sign me in that third after that third season, which was 2012, and it was really cool. Like it was. I went from a guy who, really wasn't expecting any kind of financial bonus or incentive for playing in the NFL. I always thought I'd be kind of playing at league minimum, and then for the team to say, "Hey, like it wasn't anything crazy, but here's a modest." Pay increase. It kind of showed a lot of belief that the organization had in me, which was really special because as an undrafted free agent, like one thing you do feel is that no one kind of believes in you except for yourself. So for the team to do that, it was cool. It was very cool and something that obviously had a very positive effect on my family and from a financial standpoint for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then you moved to Atlanta, Chicago, and San Francisco, right? Or Houston.
Yes, correct.
And how was it like to learn new offenses after you changed teams?
Yeah, I mean it was definitely a process for sure. I think one of the things I was really fortunate to an experience that doesn't seem like it's a positive experience in colleges. I had a bunch of different coaches. I think I had 9 different position coaches in my 5 years at UCLA. I had 2 or 3 offensive coordinators. I had 2 head coaches. Oh no, I had 5 offensive coordinators. I had 2 head coaches. So I had to learn a bunch of different offenses and different coaching styles in college. So coming to the NFL, I had really had like a system already in place from that experience in college to learn an offense. I think that's what helped me learn the offense when Kyle was here, then when Jay was here, and then when I went to Chicago, I remember they were like, "Hey, do you think you can learn the offense in a week and play this week versus the Houston Texans?" And I said, "Sure." And so I just kind of implemented that system and really studied hard and got ready, knew most of the offense in about a week or the stuff I needed to know, which was, 21 and 22 21, excuse me, and 12 personnel kind of packages. So 2 tight ends and a running back, and then 2 running backs and a tight end. I was in kind of those packages. So I learned that entire section of the offense. And then when I went to San Francisco, it was quite honestly a retread of some of the stuff I had learned when I was in Washington with Kyle. And then when I went to Atlanta, it was kind of the same thing. It was a version of what Kyle had done here in Washington. So I had kind of a system of learning offenses and picking stuff up, which was very, very helpful. But also, I did have some crossover later in my career with some systems that weren't exactly the same, but very similar.
And at any point of your career, did you mix like the offenses? Like,
Yeah, there were times, where you'd kind of be like, oh, like this play is like this play from before, but you'd say it in the wrong language. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like right now, I'm sure you're fluent in what language do they speak in Guatemala? Spanish?
Spanish.
Yeah, and English, right? And so there's times I'm sure when you're speaking where you kind of say, oh, like this is the Spanish word for this, but it comes out as English or whatever, vice versa. And there are times, honestly, when you've learned multiple offenses where that kind of happens, where you hear a word that's the same in both offenses and you're like, oh, that's this formation. But then you're like, oh, wait, I'm in this offense and that actually is a motion or whatever it is. And so there were times like that, not too many, but there were a couple times where I had to kind of like be like, hey, what offense am I in, and get that corrected. But for sure, the more offenses you learned, the more kind of language you were exposed to.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, it kind of helped your football background for sure. So
And now to end the talk about your football career as a player, Um, what what is your what was your favorite play or game or moment during your playing career?
Yeah, my favorite play was probably in 2012 versus the Seattle Seahawks in the playoff game. I caught a touchdown in that game. It was like the first or second touchdown of the game, and I still vividly remember kind of, we were up 14-0, and the crowd was just electric. Like kind of 90,000 people just cheering this moment. And again, we ended up losing that game, but that moment was very, very special for me. And again, I wish we would have won that game, but it felt very monumental at the time. There was a in the game prior to that versus the Cowboys had a couple really big blocks which were very cool, and obviously my first touchdown from Donovan McNabb in 2010 was very cool also. But a lot of special moments over the course of my career, but those ones stick out to me for sure.
Yeah, no, and not everyone can say that they got a touchdown in the playoffs despite the result.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Now let's move to your radio career. How did you start it, and why did you choose to pick the to cover the Washington Commanders, or did they hire you? And
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before, but basically I was in Houston, and I had kind of a very unique position when I was playing for the Houston Texans. I was basically like a player coach. I was kind of mentoring two younger players, and I could see that once one of them got back from IR, I probably was going to get cut. So I I had a conversation with Grant Paulsen, who does radio out here, and he was getting ready to do something for the XFL. And I said to myself, and he said, "Oh, would you like to do color commentary for the XFL game?" And I said, "Oh, that'd be really cool because I kind of wanted to get into broadcasting post." So my family was out here, my wife and my two kids were out here, so I thought that'd be pretty easy. That's kind of a way to start working after the NFL. So I started doing that, and then through that relationship, I met the producer of really the manager of one of the radio stations, and he said, "Oh, you want to do some pre and post game stuff for us?" for the um, for the Commanders, and I said sure. So I did some of that on game day. I would do like little hits on the radio. I started doing a podcast, and then through some of that stuff, Julie Donaldson, who used to be kind of the team media VP, heard me on some stuff and brought me in when they were kind of short on talent. So I started doing spot stuff there. And again, that just kind of grew and grew and grew into more and more opportunity, which was, very, very special. But it wouldn't have happened without those other people, without, Julie, without Grant, without Chris, who was the producer, the manager of the radio station. So just kind of, I jumped at the first opportunity, and that led to more opportunities, and that led to more opportunities, which was very fortunate for me.
yeah, now I've seen you like doing interviews with Dan Quinn or the the Commanders general manager and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a weekly show with him. It's on Sundays before the game. It's called The Game Plan, and it's on the Commander's YouTube page. And yeah, that's who would have thought, when I started doing XFL games, I'd be doing a show once a week with the head coach for the Washington Commanders. So, again, I sometimes have to pinch myself to say how lucky I am to be here in this situation and, be talking about a game that I love at a really high level consistently, and that's my job. Like sometimes it feels like I never have to go to work, which is great. So.
Yeah, that looks so fun. And now, speaking of the Commanders, what are your thoughts on their season so far? Like they're 8-5, coming off a bye with a new head coach, rookie quarterback, new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so my thoughts are, I mean, exceeding expectations. I think when you look at Jayden Daniels and what he's done this year, it's it's very, very special. It's kind of I liked him a lot. I do a lot of draft stuff too for the team, and I had a very high grade on him. I thought he was going to be a good player, but to see how quickly he became that player, I think when you look at Dan Quinn, what he's done from a leadership standpoint with the team, that's also kind of again like there was a lot of different candidates for the position. He just feels like the right one. Adam Peters, I mean, you tip your hat to that guy. He's just done such a great job in terms of bringing in the right people that fit the organization, that fit the kind of cultural identity of the what is the Commanders now. Josh Harris too. I mean, all of this stuff kind of starts with him. Is you look at what he's done in terms of the financial support, the renovations at the stadium, the renovations at the practice facility, the renovations with the practice fields, the investment in sports science stuff. I mean, everything feels new and feels different, and it just feels like kind of the reward, I guess, being 8-5 for doing things the right way and making the right decisions from a business, from a football, from a leadership, from a personnel standpoint from the jump. So, did I expect it to happen this quickly? No, but I do think it feels like the team is being rewarded, the organization is being rewarded for making such outstanding hires at those spots.
Yeah, now players would definitely like to play for Washington now in the offseason. Many big name guys will likely sign with the Washington Commanders, right?
Yeah, I don't know big name guys, but I definitely think it becomes a more attractive destination for free agents. I think people for a long time didn't want to be a part of this organization because of kind of the negativity, that Dan Snyder brought, the negative reputation of the organization, the lack of winning. And so now all of a sudden you have this piece in Jayden Daniels that says, we're ready to win. We want to win. He's a guy that feels like he could be a franchise guy, which is exciting. And as speaking as a former player, that was always something very exciting when looking at different teams saying, "Oh, this quarterback is really, really good, and you can win. You can find success. You can find playoff appearances, maybe even a Super Bowl with the quarterback kind of operating in the right way." So. I don't know. He just seems like I think that's a big part of it. I think Dan Quinn's a part of that also. Adam Peters is a part of that. And so it definitely becomes a much more attractive destination for free agents, for veteran players who want to win football games. And I think instead of having to pay a premium in terms of price to get those guys in here, it's no longer that way. It's more just, like, hey, we want to win. Let's get this done. This is the best fit for the organization. This is the best fit for the player. They don't have to negotiate all that negativity in terms of kind of paying more for a player.
Yeah, exactly. And players like Bobby Wagner is a big example of how this new ownership group, this new general manager and stuff like that are making the team like a good destination for players that want to win now.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I do think you want to give credit to Adam, you want to give credit to Josh Harris for Bobby Wagner wanting to come here, but I also think you got to give credit to Dan Quinn because Dan Quinn is a special person, and I played for him when I was in Atlanta in 2017. And obviously, I get to do the show with him weekly, and you just to see kind of how he cares about people and how he motivates and inspires people to play for him. And so I don't think Bobby Wagner's here in year one of a restructure or rebuild for a team if Dan Quinn's not here. And I think a lot of guys, Tyler Biadasz, Dorrance Armstrong are here. Zach Ertz, a big part of the reason he's here is because of the type of human that Dan Quinn is. And I think that's I can't be overstated his value to making sure those guys were here.
Yeah, and that's making the team really special this year.
Yes, very special. I think obviously you're catching lightning in a bottle a little bit. You have the last place schedule from the year before, but having the leadership of Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler before he got hurt, Zach Ertz is special. Like those guys they've been around the NFL for a long time. They know what it takes to win games, so that's important, right? Also, I think again, just what Cliff has done with the offense, what Joe Witt Jr. has done with the defense. You see the value and the importance of coaching and mentoring across the board in terms of the improvement they've seen here. So yeah, lots of really exciting things for this team because of again the coaches, the GM, all of those things. It just seems like they'd made the Josh Harris and the selection committee just did such a good job with that initially, and it's just sent shockwaves down the roster and down the organization in a very positive way.
Yeah, now the season is almost over, but what do you think that are the main keys for Washington to finish the season strong and making it to the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think they one of the things that Dan always says is just focusing on it one game at a time. And I think when you look at the Washington's offense, if Washington's offense can effectively run the football and Jayden Daniels can continue to make good decisions and again be efficient on first and second down, manage the difficult third and long situations, like this offense can really, really cook. And so I think like that to me is the key, right? I think the defense has been playing well enough over the last 5 or 6 weeks to get you where you need to go if the offense plays at a very high level. So to me, the key, just observing, is the offense needs to play exceptional. The defense needs to play pretty good. And again, like this team, I love this team. I love the people on this team, but they're a little under talented compared to the Detroit Lions or the Philadelphia Eagles. So they do need to kind of walk a very kind of tight rope to make sure that they're winning football games, especially against some of those big dogs. But I do think this team has shown when they're at their best, they can compete with the best in the NFL. I think when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers game, right, what they were able to do going toe to toe, I think they lost by a point with a team that's a Super Bowl bound team, in my opinion, like a very good, skilled roster, very talented, very strong cultural identity there in Pittsburgh. And they've shown they can get that done. So I think if again, the offense plays well, Jayden Daniels, what he did early in the season, they run the football, they alleviate some pressure on the defense. I think there's really a good shot that they make a big push in the playoffs.
Yeah, and part of that success, as you have spoken, is Jayden Daniels, right? Do you think that he is a lock to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, or do you think it is a close battle between him, Bo Nix, and Brock Bowers?
Dude, I love that you brought up all three of those names because those are the names that I think are really in like it's a three-horse race in my opinion. And I'm probably biased having seen what Jaden's done here, but he's had a special year, man. Early in the year he was historic in terms of production, in terms of efficiency, in terms of kind of the poise that he was showing, and obviously Bo Nix has kind of narrowed that gap. But I do think that when you look at the totality of the season and who's been more impressive, it's Jayden Daniels. And I think people sometimes in national conversation forget that he's still a rookie because of the poise, because of the professionalism that he's shown. But I do think, and again, I might be biased, that he deserves that opportunity. And the other one that I think I'm glad you mentioned Brock Bowers. I mean, talk about having an historic year. Like what a special player at the tight end position. And I'm obviously biased there because I played tight end, but watching him is very unique. But I would still have to give it to Jayden Daniels, I think.
Yeah, and speaking of Brock Bowers, the Raiders have had like a rough season with the quarterbacks and stuff like that. And in the other side, Bo Nix started rough and then started to go up, up, up.
Yes.
But Jayden Daniels has done a really good job too.
Yeah, I think I like that how you characterize that there. Like Brock Bowers has been good from day one, right? It's also he's the only thing in that offense that really scares you. Bo Nix again struggled and it is now playing a little bit better, but Jayden Daniels has been a model of consistency since day one, and I think there's value to that, and I think that's something that the voters should consider when looking at that Rookie of the Year award.
And do you think that assuming Washington makes the playoffs and Denver makes the playoffs, do you think that it's gonna be even more close, or you think it's already
I,
sealed for
I
Jaden?
I mean, I really think for Denver this weekend they've got a really big game against the Indianapolis Colts, and I think there's a lot of playoff implications there. So if they do lose that game, I do think it kind of shifts the race to Jayden Daniels. No matter what happens, I think obviously both of them need to play well the last couple weeks of the season in order to kind of solidify the award. But I do think there is something very prescient about the immediacy of this Colts game this weekend. And if he does lose that game, there's like a 50% chance reduction that they make the playoffs. So
Yeah.
if they lose that game, then maybe this isn't a conversation we're having. But obviously, I want both of them to play well. I want to see good football, and hopefully they both do that. And I think they will. And again, it's cool for the NFL that they're both kind of in contention for this award, and there's so much talent at the most important position in the sport.
Yeah, I'm very nervous for that game because I'm a Broncos fan, so
Oh, are you? You're
yeah.
also a Broncos fan? Yeah, I mean that's going to be an exciting game. I'm like a closeted. I'm not so much a closet. I'm like a very optimistic person about Anthony Richardson. So each week I watch his games. I'm like, man, maybe this is the week where he turns it on and figures it out. But sounds like I should wait till next week for you, right? Because
Yeah.
you want the Broncos to win.
Yeah, for sure. And now to close it out, what do you think that are the keys for Washington to beat New Orleans this week?
Ooh, that's a
Because
great question. I think so. What I do think is I think the New Orleans Saints are really having a hard time stopping the run defensively. And so I think if Washington comes in there, can manage the environment, that stadium down there in New Orleans gets really loud, very fun spot to play, very kind of hostile for opposing teams. I think if Washington can come down, run the football, if Jayden Daniels can protect the football and play efficient, like we talked about, for them to win the last four games, what they need to do, it's really the same thing for this game. And this is a game that they can and they should win. They need to come out here and show that they are definitively and demonstrably the better team. And so I think that starts with a good offensive performance. I think that also works with the defense in saying, how do we contain Alvin Kamara? I think both those things are going to be huge in this game. But for me, this is an offensive driven team. They play complementary football, but this team is offensively driven. And I think that the offense needs to come out and have another dominant performance like they did last week against the Tennessee Titans, or 2 weeks ago now because of the bye. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be, it should be an easy win for Washington, but it could be
There's
a
no easy
close one.
wins, man. No easy wins in the
Yeah,
NFL. What are we talking about?
and Marshawn Lattimore is coming back home for his Commander's debut.
Yes, I think that's also going to be really interesting just in terms of how that changes what Joe Witt wants to do defensively. I think that'll be also really interesting to watch. Like he does have this man-to-man skill set. Joe Witt Jr., at least when you look at what he did last year in Dallas, wants to play a little bit more man-to-man. Does this allow him to do that? Does this allow him to be more aggressive on third down in terms of bringing pressure packages and various blitzes? So again, in terms of storylines to watch for, Marshawn's coming home. I think that's a big personal one for him and obviously for New Orleans fans. But for me as a Commanders fan, I want to know what Joe Witt is doing differently now that he is appears to be in the lineup.
Yeah, and speaking of the game, the Saints just announced a few hours ago that they'll start Jake Heener as their quarterback, right?
Yes, they did. And I've watched a little bit of him this season. I think he's got some ability, but again, like he's a backup quarterback for a reason. And I think you got to come in if you're the Commanders and respect what he can do, but also try to dictate terms as much as possible. And I think with a guy who's in a backup position, I think you want to put him in a difficult position to be successful. So I think you want to stop the run. That's why we're going to take care of
Of
Alvin
Kamara.
Kamara. And also, I think when you look at how injured they are at the receiver position, Chris Olave's out. Shaheen, I think is how
The
you say
heat
his
is
name, is also out. Those were kind of their explosive big play merchants earlier in the season. They've lost a little bit of firepower there. And obviously, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is in the lineup and can be very, very dangerous. But that's one piece that isn't like a truly elite weapon. He's an explosive
for
play
sure.
merchant, but not a big play weapon. So again, I think if you can put the burden on this backup quarterback, you're going to be in a good spot if you're the Washington Commanders for winning this football game.
Yeah, and Philadelphia is one win away to clinch the division, right? So the Commanders must win every single game and hope that Philly loses.
Yeah, I think Philly, yeah, obviously Philly in terms of clinching the division. I'm not sure how that important that is for Washington or how tenable that is for Washington. Obviously, if they were to lose out, that'd be great. But I think right now it's about making the playoffs for Washington, just like it is about making the playoffs for Denver, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You want them to win the games they need to win to make the playoffs. And in the first year, Dan Quinn's first year, Jayden Daniels' first year, Adam Peters' first year, I think that would be just such a shot in the arm for this fan base here in Washington and so exciting for this organization. It would really be electric. And so that's what I'm hoping for. I don't, win the division, whatever you got to do, but let's make the playoffs. And that would just be so fun to see after such a long drought.
Yeah, for sure it would be. And to close out the interview, which is your Super Bowl matchup,
Oh,
your Super Bowl prediction?
gosh, that is quite the question. I always get the divisions confused, but I would like to see it'll probably be Kansas City, even though I don't think even though they're not as good as they've been the last couple of years, and I'm kind of hoping Detroit. I want to see that game. Like that would be so fun to watch that again, but I'm not sure if they can kind of hang with with all the defensive injuries that they've had. But again, just in terms of offensive philosophy and mindset and like a cultural rejuvenation, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
And in the AFC, so Kansas City and Detroit, right?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Yeah, hopefully it's gonna be a good playoffs this year, and let's hope to have a great Super Bowl to end the season.
Yeah, that would be so fun. And again, hopefully the Commanders are in the playoffs and hopefully the Broncos are in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks a lot, Logan, for joining me today. Hope you have a great end of the season and hope your Washington Commanders can make the playoffs.
Yes, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.